Today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2015, and I decided to bring the blog to you a little bit differently. Today, I decided to bring it as a video blog post, so I hope you'll bear with me. I haven't done this for a while, but I thought it would be some good practice for me in my speaking, but it would also be an opportunity to share some thoughts that were on my mind as I was thinking about today's post. So today's post is inspired by one of my favorite passages in Scripture. In the book of Colossians, Colossians is a letter that Paul wrote to the church of Colossae. And I always remember where it is in the book of the Bible by a short little, acronym, GEPCA. So Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, and then comes Colossians. So in Colossians 4, chapters 2 through 6 is one of my favorite passages in the whole Bible. So what I'll do is I'm going to read it first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. And I hope that it's something that will inspire your thoughts as you go through the day today. And I'm hoping also that at the end, you'll chime in with your thoughts about how you might be able to make the most of the opportunities that God has set right before you today. So let's get started. In chapter 4 of Colossians, verses 2 through 6, Paul says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. And pray for us, too, that God may open a door for our message, so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I am in chains. Pray that I may proclaim it clearly, as I should. Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." So let's break it down a little bit. First, Paul starts out this whole passage by talking about devotion. He says, devote yourselves to prayer. So when I think of the word devote, I think of devotion. Now, if you've got devotion for a sports team, like I'm a big Eagles fan, I'm a big Phillies fan, I'm also a Bears fan and a Bulls fan. So those are my teams. When I see them on TV, I'm not just in it halfway, I'm cheering all the way. I'm all in. And so when Paul challenges us to devote ourselves to prayer, he's telling us to go all in. And then when he talks about prayer, I don't think he's talking about being on your hands and knees all the time, at least not physically, but maybe emotionally, maybe spiritually in your thought process. I think he's talking about having an ongoing conversation with our Creator, really a mindset and an attitude. Is God always in our mindset? Is Christ at the forefront of our thoughts? That's a challenge, and I think that that's something that takes practice. That'll only happen if you're really all in, if you're really devoting yourself. So he goes on to say in verse 2, devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful. Now when I see the word watchful, I think of being on alert. So in my book that I wrote in last April, On Track, Life Lessons from the Track and Field, the first chapter I talk about being in the starting blocks. And I talk about 4 things that a sprinter must do to be successful getting out of the starting blocks. He has to wear the appropriate clothing. He's got to be still. He's got to be ready, and he's got to be alert. And he's got to listen. And so it's the same thing for us. We need to be alert. If we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, we're going to miss out on opportunities. We'll talk about opportunities in a few minutes. But then he also says to be thankful, being watchful and thankful. Matt McWilliams is somebody I've kind of collaborated with a little bit with the whole thank you revolution thing. And I think we need to develop attitudes of gratitude. We have to learn to stay positive. There's a lot of negativity in this world, and we're not going to get our message across very effectively if we're negative. It's a cool thing that we get to do. We get to be ambassadors for Christ. So let's learn to shift our mindset. Let's learn to be positive. So in verse 3, he goes on to say, and pray for us too, that God may open a door for our message. So he's asking the people of Colossae, the people in the church of Colossae, to pray for Paul and the people who his posse, I'll say, the people who he's hanging with, that God may open a door for our message. So what message is he talking about? I think he's talking about God's message. That seems pretty obvious. But I think that we've all been given a message, a story that speaks to other people. So what message has God given you to share with others? What's your story? Last week I had the privilege of sharing part of my story at Grove City College when I interviewed 5 candidates, engineering candidates, and when I also had the chance to share before a group of leaders on campus, student leaders. We talked about legacy and delegation and leadership, and part of that came out of my story, some of my successes and some of my failures along the way. I've also had the opportunity to share some of the challenges that our family has faced over the last couple of days. Sunday night at youth group, I had the opportunity to sit down with a family and share a part of the story that I believe that God has given us to help others. And just this morning, I was working with one of my coworkers, and he needed a little bit of time with me to talk about stuff outside the working world. I really believe that I had an opportunity to share the message. The door was opened. So he goes on to say that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ for which I am in chains. The whole Christian thing, the whole Jesus Christ thing can seem kind of strange to those who aren't familiar with his message. But you know what? God can use you. God can use your humanness to shed light to an otherwise dark world. So don't underestimate the opportunity that you have to proclaim that mystery to others. That happens through your words and through your actions. So we need to be alert and ready and thankful for those opportunities that God has given us to proclaim the mystery of Christ. He goes on to say in verse 4, pray that I may proclaim it clearly as I should. Boy, sometimes I don't speak very clearly. I learned that most of all when I'm at home, when I give my kids instruction, and 10, 15, 20 minutes later, that thing that I asked them to do still hasn't been done. So clearly, I'm not being clear in explaining to my kids. So we need to learn to be clear. I think that comes from practicing. One of the reasons I'm doing this video blog today is so that I have the opportunity to practice being clear. I go to Toastmasters so that I can speak more clearly and more eloquently, because I want to be effective in communicating to others, both in my leadership role at my company, in my writing and in my blog presence, at home, and in my neighborhood, and in other arenas of my life. I want to make sure that I'm clear. And it says, as I should. So we should learn to be clear. We should proclaim the message of Christ clearly. That's something, it's an honor and it's a privilege and it's a responsibility. It's something that we need to learn to do. Verse 5, he says, be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. We need to seek wisdom. Seeking wisdom starts by spending time in God's Word. I'll admit, life can get pretty busy at times. We can be challenged to keep up with whatever our kids are up to, whatever the challenges are at work or in school or wherever else we might be participating in life. We need to make sure that we carve time into our busy schedules to spend time gaining wisdom. And the first place that starts is in God's Word. But then from there, there's certainly other good resources to use. There's podcasts and there's books. There's mentors that you can plug into. But always start in God's Word. That's the best place to seek wisdom. And then be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. I guess outsiders is a nice way of saying people who don't know Christ. You are rubbing shoulders every day, I bet, with people who are outside, who don't know Christ. You have the opportunity to invite them in. There's an acronym I like to use that I picked up at a Willow Creek conference, small groups conference several years ago, and it's FRANK. This came from my friend Mark Ashton. And F stands for friends, R stands for relatives or relations, A stands for associates, so maybe people you work with or people you do business with, N stands for neighbors, and K stands for kids. FRANK. Friends, relatives, associates, neighbors, and kids. Be on alert. Be watchful for those around you who might be outside of God's circle at this time, because you have the opportunity to invite them in. Then it says, make the most of every opportunity. This is probably my favorite phrase in the whole passage. Obviously, Paul's talking about making the most of the opportunities to share Christ's love and Christ's message to a lost and broken world. I also like to think that it's talking about opportunities that we have to spend valuable time with our families and with our friends. It's easy to get busy and crazy, and it's easy to allow ourselves to get distracted from the targets that God has set for us. So what opportunities are before you? We need to learn to use our time, our talents, our resources, and our relationships so that we can reach out and make the most of the opportunities that God has given to us. Right now, as I'm recording this, we have Isaac and his small group over to our house. When we moved into our house, we knew we wanted our house to be a place where people could come and it could be used as a tool to help people feel welcome and to feel God's love. Honestly, a confession that I have to make is we don't always do a great job with that. We get caught up in the busyness of whatever's going on in our schedule, and we sometimes fail to make the most of the resource opportunity that God's given to us. So today's small group with Isaac and his friends is a reminder of the importance of making the opportunity, not just in our conversation, but in our time and our energy and our resources, and with those we rub shoulders with every day. And then finally in verse 6, Paul says, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Full of grace does not imply condemnation. I think it means loving first. That can be a real challenge. There's a lost and broken world out there, and when we come down judging them, when we come down judging people, we do very little to introduce them to Christ and the love that He has for them. There'll be time for them to be convicted of sin. We have sin in our own lives that still needs to be dealt with. And then seasoned with salt. Salt's a preservative, so it's meant to save food. So our conversation should be targeted to help save people, but it's also meant to be tasty. I don't always, but sometimes I put a little salt on my food, just a little bit, to help it taste a little bit differently or a little bit more to my liking. We need to make sure that we're not watering down the message of Christ, but that we are making it attractive to those who may need to hear it and have never heard it before. And then finally, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Everybody needs the message of Christ, and you and I have the opportunity to be ambassadors for Him. So let's go out and make the most of those opportunities to serve Christ, to represent Him well in what we're doing on a daily basis. So as I close out today, I want to leave you with a question. What opportunity is waiting for you today, and how are you going to make the most of it? After you've listened to the video, I hope you'll go back to jonstolpe.com and leave your response in the comments. Thanks very much. Keep stretching.